So today we're supposed to use the Feldman method in order to analyze a piece of Greek art, and I chose a maiden gathering flowers. First part to the Feldman method is description. And so a couple things that I noticed about this piece is that the green has really no horizon point. It just kind of extends beyond. And then there's basically two main colors. There's the gold that the maiden is wearing and her basket of flowers, and then there's the green that kind of is in the background to her. And then I thought it was important to note that the maiden is walking away from us, and then as well as her little drape is falling off the right side of her shoulder. The second part of the Feldman method is analysis. Some important things to note about maiden gathering flowers is that it was a fresco, which means the paint was actually put into the walls while they were being made in the villas, and they found it in a small countryside town near Pompeii at the foot of Mount Vesuvius. Additionally, I noticed that because there are basically two main colors, the green and the gold, the maiden becomes the main focal point of this image. Lastly, there seems to be a really strong sense of unity in this picture between the green surrounding the maiden and the maiden, and how those two colors interact with each other. Now, the third aspect of the Feldman method is interpretation. As I mentioned earlier, maiden gathering flowers is a fresco, and this was very common amongst the villas in the towns in the Hellenistic periods. Instead of hanging pictures, they would paint murals and create frescoes. You can tell that this fresco is from the Greek period because as they moved out of Egyptian times and into Greek times, they started to care more about proportion and the fluidity and the soul of a painting, which you can tell from the maiden as she just exudes a sense of grace and peacefulness. Lastly, this fresco is very specific to this time period because it was painted during a time when art was moving into a period of just appreciating art for art rather than creating art for religious ceremonies or for the gods. And lastly is judgment. Considering that this piece survived the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, I would say it's a pretty successful piece of art in terms of informing us about history and cultures that came before us. Personally, I also love the way that this fresco makes me feel. It just gives me this sense of peace and carefreeness. One example of this is how the maiden's dress is kind of falling off the side of her right shoulder, and this just kind of makes me feel like there's a sense of going with the flow and enjoying the nature that she's in. As well as the way that the maiden is positioned, she kind of seems to be dancing or frolicking through these fields, which also adds to the feeling of peace that this fresco makes me feel. Overall, I really enjoy this fresco, and I think it's a really cool peek into the transition of art for religion into art for art in the Greek period.